I mean, I think we all kind of know what we're here for. So it's like, I really appreciated when the conversation like that we had, me, you and Melody and Janos. Um, and so like, let's get into it, y'all.
Yeah, let's do that. I appreciate the agenda, but I think we should skip to what's not important here. So for us, based on where we are, we don't see a reason to move forward with the contractual relationship. So I want to start there. What that means for the campaign, we can discuss. What that means for resources, we can discuss. But I think we're fooling ourselves to think that there's any way to make this work at this point. And that's me not just speaking for my team, that's me speaking for myself, just to be clear. Like for me, things have diminished to the point where like I lose sleep overnight over this relationship. And it's detracting from the other things I have going on professionally and personally. And I just don't want to beat around the bush. So I want to start there and build out from there. And I'll stop.
No, I think that the difficulty, right, in this relationship has been evident for a long time, right, on our end as well. So let's just start there. Like, so what does it look like, right, for you?
I don't know. You tell me what you guys think is fair at this point.
But we had the memo we sent earlier this summer, but you're saying,
I think that is not a good starting place. I think that was at a point where we were all sitting together trying to figure out how to make some semblance of this relationship work.
so
I
we're
think
going our
we're far
separate
from it.
ways, right?
Huh?
We're going our separate ways.
Look, that can be the outcome here, and I wouldn't be totally surprised if that's where we ended up. If I put aside whatever emotional feelings I feel about this, that doesn't have to be the outcome for me.
Yeah, I don't think that's
Hey, yeah, it's okay. It's
yeah. I mean,
I
yeah,
forgot where I was. I'm sorry.
no, yeah,
You said so we go our separate ways.
yeah.
I mean, look, it's a small community. I don't know how we actually go our separate ways without causing more problems for both organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do think that the relationship needs to look a lot different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's
So
right. That's
again,
right. That's right.
I walked in this room thinking that I was going to say two or three words and that this conversation was probably going to end at that point. We're still sitting here 2 minutes later. I'm open to a discussion about what this might look like, but it's going to look differently. And I don't envision that sitting on your side of the table that you're going to be pleased with where we end up.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're going to be pleased where we end up ultimately, right? So I mean, we should just put that out there. But let's talk about it. We had obviously an idea of how to go forward. I think we both agree that we want to figure out how this works, and it doesn't create like a bunch of like craziness for us and other people, right? So like, let's do that. I think that's doable. What I mean by like the relationship being different really is like kind of what you start to kind of like lay it out. Like, going back over my notes, like you were laying it out on the phone. I thought like really well, saying like, okay, like there's parts of this work that's that, and there's parts of this work that's that, right? And then it's like, so,
But we're
right,
talking about money right now.
yeah.
We're not talking about the work. We were having a conversation about the work. As soon as we got the money, the conversation was over.
No, I
So
mean, you're
yeah, we
making
did.
that distinction though. So,
Well,
so
but we haven't gotten past this money conversation yet. So I don't want to have the same conversation we had on the phone again until we talk about money, because money is what got us to a full stop.
let's do it. So money.
Yeah, I mean the as far as on our end, there was a 2-year grant that was made with Katal getting a portion of that money. So like we still expect to receive that.
Then you should talk to Chloe about that.
And then there's a conversation to happen about the rest of the campaign funding.
Then you should talk to Chloe about that. I'm not willing to have that discussion.
So where are you in it though?
What does that mean?
What's your position on it?
I don't have to take a position in this conversation about that.
About the money?
No,
You just brought the money. You just said we're gonna start the money.
I don't have to take a position in this conversation about what was just asked. If that is your position, you can have that position. I'm not going to argue about it.
Which position?
Well, he just took a position that we got into a 2-year grant and that a percentage of the money belongs to Katal and that a percentage of other grant money belongs to Katal. That's a fine position for you guys to take. I'm not willing to have that discussion without a lawyer in the room.
Oh, I get it. I get it. So, like, we're actually not having a meeting. You kind of come in to tell us how it is, and then what you're gonna do.
I've come in to tell you our position with respect to money, to which you responded, to which I'm saying that it's gotten to the point where I'm not sure we can continue with this conversation.
So you're saying we should talk to Chloe about the money?
I'm saying you should do what you think you need to do based on where you guys want to land. Like, I'm okay with that.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I get it. I'm trying to work with you. I'm saying, what is it that you expected Katal to do coming out of this meeting?
I didn't have any expectations.
So you just you're gonna come in and tell us that you're not gonna give us any money?
I don't know what that means. I gave you money at the beginning of the year. It was a huge check. There's a lot of deliverables in the contract. Most of them are not delivered on.
Really?
Yeah.
You make that clear yet?
To who?
Us.
I made it clear to counsel,
Council.
our lawyers.
Did they make that clear to us?
They will.
Oh, Clinton. Are you doing this for real?
Are y'all doing this?
Yeah, we're gonna dance.
Then we could dance.
Cool. And so we should have so let's just make sure we understand what we ended at here. We came here today to have a conversation with you about how we're gonna work together. You interrupted that and said, like, we ain't gonna work together because I can't rock with you. And then said, well, we just gonna talk about money. And then we start talking about money, said, well, you ain't do no money. Then if you think you are, you should get a lawyer.
I'm telling you that if you're telling us that you're going to muscle us around for next year's grant, that we need lawyers.
I don't think what muscle come. We have an agreement that was written in the proposal.
That's why I say we should talk about lawyers. New York's a four-corner state. Whatever's in the contract is what's in the contract.
Wow. So that's how we're doing this.
This is where we ended up.
Okay. I mean, if that's how, I don't know if you're giving us many options. You're telling us to do what we think we need to do to get the money that we think is owed us.
I am telling you to do that. I can't get in the way of you doing that.
You are in the way of us doing that because you are the person that's telling us that. Like, where did that change come from? Like, where did the change from the grant come? Where did the change from? Like, here's your one, here's your two. Where did that change at? Like, where did that change?
Help me understand how we go into year 3 at the same dollar level, given where we are.
I don't necessarily know where you think we are. I thought we just won the campaign. We were going to the next level and working the relationship out. Until you came in today, I didn't even know that we were going to be having a conversation about not having a relationship until like 10 minutes ago.
Oh, I'm sorry you didn't know that. Maybe because you haven't really been part of like the interaction.
No, I had a conversation with you last week that ended with, we're going to have a conversation about money. We're going to have a conversation about the relationship. And then like less than 7 days later, you're walking into the room 2 minutes into the conversation saying that we're not going to do that.
Yeah, at the point where you guys said you're going to give us the money that we're supposed to get in year 3, I'm saying that just is not the case.
Okay.
I walked in here saying, let's have a conversation about money and see if we can negotiate something. Your part of negotiation was, give us what you owe us.
Mm-hmm.
To which my response is, I don't feel like that's how this works. We have a contract. There's language in the contract. The relationship is not working. If you don't want to negotiate, then the contract rules the day. So I don't see how I came in
What
here.
are we not negotiating though? We're here saying to you that we want to have a conversation.
And I just asked you a very direct question. How do I, in good conscience, take an amount of resources that are meant for a specific deliverable, and given where we are in this relationship, knowing we're not going to get those deliverables, still hand over that amount of money?
Well, I don't know how you know you're not going to get those deliverables.
Just to name, right? We posed this question. You asked us what our response was. That's the response, and then you ended the conversation. You said,
Right.
well, then there's no negotiation. We haven't even talked about a negotiation at this stage.
Like literally, like I thought we left off.
It sounds to me like you gave me your position with respect to money. Which was
what you requested, and then, but that's the conversation we're looking to have.
I mean,
I don't know if that's right. That may be where you are. Doesn't sound like that's where Lorenzo is. Lorenzo subtly threatened me twice already.
Oh,
I heard both of them.
whatever. My point is,
You can whatever me. That's the disrespectful part.
That's cool.
And
No,
that's why.
No,
No.
All the way here from Connecticut to have a conversation in good faith, right? I did not come. You walked into the room and changed this entire conversation, dude. Like I walked in and was like, "Hey, Glenn, give you a hug," and then you were like, "Hey, it ain't gonna be like that." And then what? Then what do you want me to say? It's like I'm literally sitting here asking you, How can we work together? And you're saying, I don't think we can.
I don't think you asked me how can we work together. What you did was you said, we have a grant, we have a contract, we're going to get what's coming to us. And you said, if that's not the case, then we all know where this is going to end up.
Yeah, we
And I
don't
said,
have to dance. That was after you told me to get a lawyer. You literally started this meeting by telling me to get a lawyer. I didn't start there.
because you referred to the contract. You did not refer to how do we negotiate. You referred to what you think is what's in place, which is, okay, there's a contract in place. If we're not negotiating outside of that contract, then we're not negotiating. If you're saying what's in that contract is what we get, you have the right to say that. I don't have the right to tell you, you don't have the right to say that. All I'm telling you is that if the conversation is stuck in those four corners of that contract, then I'm not sure where we go from there.
So just that's not where we started. We're not having a conversation with the contract, right? It's like, it's not what the conversation is. The conversation about the funding is, look, there's been a grant that we wrote. We partnered on it. So the conversation is about like what's going to happen with that funding. We get all the contracts. That's not what we didn't bring that into the room. You asked what our position is. Our position is, look, there's funding in that 2-year grant. We budgeted that 3rd year, as you did, around that funding on that 2-year agreement that Chloe confirmed for us in the fall of last year. It would be great if that money came through, because we're doing things that relate to the objective, which I think we all share and is not in question here, which is closing Rikers. There's other stuff in the grant that as the relationship changes, yeah, I get it, right? Things related to things that when we started having the conversation and what the money was initially for, right, were things like the statewide lobbying, right? Lobby days, those sorts of things. Like, it would be great if some of that money came through. If it doesn't, it doesn't, right? But
How much money do you expect? What check do you expect me to write you on January 1st of next year? Can we just say that out loud?
Sure. There were
Can you just give me a dollar number?
Yeah. I mean, I think the baseline is 550,
We have a problem.
right?
We have a problem.
So, but then there's all these different variations that were in the grant that were about how that money was going to move and the increased amount for staffing based on where we thought we would be in year 3. It's like, that's where we started, right? So for us, like that's where we're hoping we land here, right? And you're saying, no, that's not.
I'm saying I don't agree with everything you just said. And that's not where I anticipate landing, no.
So where do you anticipate landing? Without us getting into this conversation about lawyers, which I hope we don't go that route, where do you anticipate this landing?
I don't know if I want to have that conversation, actually.
But what are we here for? That's what I don't understand.
We're here so you can talk to you're not giving us the money next year.
You can keep couching it that way, bro. You can keep couching it that way.
Well, we're asking you, what are we here
I
for?
came here, the first thing I said was, I hope that we find a way to hold on to some semblance of a relationship.
Right? And then we said, okay. And you said, you may need a lawyer.
Once you said, which is what Gabriel's repeating, that you believe that when we wrote the grant, that the grant was made to both organizations, we have a problem.
I didn't say that. It wasn't made to both organizations. It was made out to Just Leadership, which was based on a verbal agreement and a thing that we had a conversation about in 2015. And I don't, to the extent that what we're doing is that if we end up in a situation of talking about legal agreements, I'm not sure where I'm not sure that's going to be good for anybody. I certainly don't want to end up, we want to end up there. I don't think it's like, it's totally inconsistent. I get there's a lot of issues here. I'm having a hard time understanding why you're taking the position that you're in without, I don't get it.
Okay.
And so
I can explain that if you want to take a moment for that conversation. I feel as though the lack of leadership by myself and whoever on your team in the beginning of this that led to all this damage among staff is difficult to repair, even though we've had 3 or 4 conversations trying to do so. I think part of it is that your approach to the work is different than ours. Your culture is different than ours. I don't know who's right or wrong. It's just different. We both evolved as organizations. When the conversation got to the point where you thought I was being disrespectful and rude, that to me is like very personal sort of conversation. That takes it out of the professional space and moves it into the personal space in a way that I have a hard time understanding how I write you a check for over $500,000 and expect that if you think I'm rude and disrespectful, that you'd be able to deliver on that the way we need you to deliver. That's number one. Number two is I think that the approach you guys are taking to the legislative reform work is different than how we want to handle that work. Totally different. And it's fine. It's how you want to do it. And I have no say in how you want to do it or who gathers around you to do it. But I do have a say in how we do the work. And so my say in how we do the work is we want to do it differently going forward. We want to change the structure of the Closed Rankers campaign's leadership going forward. We want to change our approach to the legislative reform work going forward, which means to me, and I know this is not whatever, you don't want to hear it. If I was sitting on your side of the table, I wouldn't want to hear it. It's just hard for me to wrap my head around how we continue to move forward with a $550,000 grant. I just don't understand what we get from you guys for $550,000, given where we are, given the personal stuff I talked about and the staffing stuff and everything else, and the shift in approach to the work.
So when you say we should talk to Chloe, what do you mean?
I mean, I said that when you started saying that, look, we're going to get what we're going to get and hands up in the air. I was like, at that point, then you're saying that the grant was made to both of us, so maybe you should talk to Chloe about that.
So, okay.
All right.
If I'll offer this, Glenn, if you want to have, it seems like that conversation we had about legislative stuff is real on you still. And if you want to have a conversation one-on-one about that, or probably mediated so that we can try to get some of that stuff, I'm real open to it. I think while I could have chosen my words differently potentially, what that was certainly not anything I've ever seen, and something I have to never go through again. There's been a lot in this relationship that has been rough, and we spent a lot of time trying to build everything out. At the end of the day, you are certainly more than welcome to assert that the principal engagement that we had with each other was a contractual one. That is going to be a hard story to tell over time. Because
And I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to do it. That's where you're going with the conversation. If that's where we're landing, then I've already prepared myself for the outcome of this conversation.
Okay.
If
If you let me finish, please.
But
What I'm trying to say is, I think it's advantageous for everybody if we land somewhere differently.
I do too.
I
do too, as long as I don't feel like we're getting bullied.
It would be helpful for me to understand what it is that you think we're working with here that's the bullying leverage here. You have the funding's coming to you.
Well, I'm hearing from other folks. So I think what you're working with is the ability to talk to other people about what's disintegrating here, what's not
Who
working.
are you here? What have you heard?
I don't think that's important to this discussion.
Right, because I don't know if that's actually a real thing, because we're not actually talking to folks about anything yet, other than to say when we're confronted with questions that have come from folks who've received phone calls from or conversations with y'all, what's happening. And because we haven't had a conversation, it's not really clear what to say, and so we don't say a whole lot. But
Same thing on our end.
I'm not sure what the bullying, like what is this, this is an accusation that you're making that we're bullying them. I'm letting you understand what that means. Like, what does that mean?
I said we're not going to be bullied. I didn't say we were being bullied. I said, but we're not going to be
But
bullied. So when the conversation gets to the point where you're like, I don't think you want to deal with a public discussion about whether this is contractual versus something else.
I don't think anyone.
It feels like
I don't think anybody does. I'm saying I don't like.
Do you?
I mean, the position that
I've decided coming into this meeting that it might end up there. I don't want it.
I'm also hearing that you kind of taking precautions for this conversation and relationship going bad. You've already kind of like seeded the ground to protect yourself.
The agency.
Yeah. So that means you've already made a decision and you've begun conversations and preparations.
Your language on the previous
That's it.
call was a heads up to me about what was going to happen in this conversation.
And what language was that?
About how much you thought you deserved based on the contract and based on the budget.
So when we were talking, why didn't you say that?
I did. I said,
No, but
I did. We had a great conversation. We put money at the back end. We didn't need to. We could have put it at the front end the same way I'm doing here. But when we got to it, I said, I think Gabriel needs to be in the room for this.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry that this is happening like this. I'm not even exactly sure
You want me to cut your check? I'll cut your fucking check. It ain't gonna be for $550. Give me a number that's more respectable. We're not gonna be working together the same way we've been working together. I'll pay you for whatever it's worth, what you bring to the table.
Wow. You gonna pay us for what we worth? Like, who do you? Dude. Yeah.
That's interesting. I thought that was a door for negotiation.
Yeah. You
Somehow
gonna,
that suggests to me that there is no
well, you're
negotiation.
it's suggesting me you think we not worth 550,000. That's what that suggests to me. You say, well, I'm not gonna cut you a check for $500,000. I'm gonna cut you a check for what you worth. So what do you think we worth?
That's not for me to say, bro.
No, you just
That's
said.
not for me to say. That's not for me to say. That's not for me to say. I'm asking you based on where we are in this relationship.
$750,000.
I think you are too, but I don't think that you're worth that in this relationship.
What do you think we're worth that with this relationship if you have?
It's not my position to say that.
But you just said it.
I think you can have a conversation with me about what you will be doing with respect to the campaign and what you think is worth.
So we said we should submit to you a new scope. A new scope of services. A new scope of services that would detail like what we would do and how much that would be. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, something we submitted a document to you all in June that we only response we got back was that you weren't going to accept it. When you didn't submit us anything back in writing to say our thinking around this relationship has changed and here's what we think it looks like. Instead, you waited all summer and now here we are in the room and you walked into the room and said it's different now, but we don't got no idea what it looks like. We just ain't gonna do it the way you think it should look like. But you're not telling us what you think it should look like. And obviously you have an idea what it should look like if it's different from what it looked like before. I'm asking you with integrity, like if you give us guidance on that, we'll give you a thing that makes sense.
If you guys are open to a negotiation, I'm willing to listen based on where we are, based on where the campaign is, what kind of work Katal is going to be doing that you think specifically relates to the Close Writers campaign and how much you think it's worth. And we can have a conversation about getting you guys money to support that. I don't have a number in my head. We're in the middle of an existing contract. It's August. I don't have a number in my head for 2013. What I do know is that what we thought we were working on together is just not freaking working. Over and over. And the memos were great, but they didn't lead to what we hoped they would lead to.
That's fair.
We tried 3-4 times. I sat down with Gabriel 2-3 times. I sat down with the team 1 or 2 times.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here either. I don't want to be here either.
You want to talk about the leadership?
I don't want to talk about anything else right now.
It seems like the money conversation is at a hold until we get back to you what we're gonna propose, right?
Decide for it.
Yeah.
Just have a hard time. We are not a contractor in this relationship. And so there is a contract or some elements that I'm not sure. Like there's a conversation where it can be boiled down. Doing so excludes role to be played, negotiable role to be done, and it's into all of the line. It's not a contractual relationship
Okay.
at its base.
Okay.
Even if there's a conversation where that is an aspect of it for sure. And so so I have a hard time trying to return to a table of a conversation that is explicitly about a contract. Like
That's fine. You have the right to do that.
the other things, the way I hear, are like, how does this get? It's not really sure what the this is, other than it's not what the this was. There is going to be a benefit, I think, on all sides to have a shared framework of what this split looks like or how it gets communicated. It's not clear to me how we get there, like given where we are in this conversation. We may never get there. But, you know, I think
I mean,
wish we could.
yeah. All right. What makes sense to
So I'm hearing. I just want to make sure I know what I'm hearing about what kind of door. It feels like I'm hearing two different things. Feels like I'm hearing maybe we should go back and think about this, figure out what the number is, and get back to you. And no, we're not going to have that kind of conversation.
No, what you're hearing from us, we understand from you that we clearly have a disagreement about how the funding gets allocated here, and that you're open to having a conversation about negotiating some type of contract with us, and if we choose to do that, we can come back to you and have that conversation.
Yeah. And you're saying we can't.
I didn't say we can't. I said I don't know if we would decide to do that given
Yeah.
the circumstances.
Okay.
Yeah.
That framework, I'm not sure that's going to work for us.
All right. Well, this was fun. The world is round, right? And like 20 years from now, like this will be a fucking funny story over a beer, hopefully. All right. You know, I'm sorry to end it like this.
But before we all jump out of here, in the meantime, I just want to make this part clear. So what happens now? Like, how do you all describe to other people
Well,
what the relationship?
we talked about that on the previous phone call. I mean, Tanya and Helena, for instance, said to me, should we be funding Katal with respect to closed Rikers? I said, you absolutely should, keeping in mind that we are going to be working on distinct pieces. They've taken over the legislative piece. It's hugely important. I think you should fund them for that. I think you should just think of the relationship as two separate relationships, and you should talk to them separately. If I should be doing something different than that, let me know, because that's what I've said to anyone who's asked me that question. I've actually been pretty damn good about how to message what's going on here. And if anyone tells you anything different, we should bring them in a room and sit in front of me. I've been very clear about the evolution of the organizations, the differences in approach to the work, the fact that what we thought would have lasted for a really long time looks a lot different now, and that it's okay.
Mhm.
And that it's okay. That's what I've messaged to people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I intend to continue to message. Hopefully,
That's consistent with what we've communicated when we've been asked. There's not been that many conversations about it with funders, but when it's come up, it's very consistent.
haven't talked to Nick, haven't talked to Greg, haven't talked to those guys. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that conversation continues to move forward as a collaborative. It's not about getting in the way of your money. I know that's what it sounds like on your side of the table. That's what it would sound like if I were on your side of the table. I'd be pissed as fuck. I get it. I get that. What it's worth is not where I want to be either. It's not where I want to be either. Take 1 second, and put yourself on my side of the table the way I'm trying to put myself on your side of the table. And ask yourself, dollar amount notwithstanding, a value conversation about explaining to Chloe and others about the $550,000 contract, given all the things that have happened. Forget about the money. Think about the values for a minute. Where else you might spend some part of that money?
Yeah, I get that you would spend it somewhere else. I think the one, I actually would like to see a discussion or some write-up, I guess you all have probably done with your clients, about what has and hasn't been delivered with respect to the contract. The second is that like that would end up in a really interesting conversation about the other things that we've done and contributed and held and kept going that were not part of the contract. And so like I get what you're saying about like, hey, what if I'm speaking about a vendor, yeah, right? It's like, but this has never been a vendor conversation. And
I appreciate that that's your perspective. You have the right to have that perspective, Gabriel.
it's not just a perspective.
Okay, you have the right to take that position. You have the right to talk about it that way publicly and so on.
That's fine. But we're not mentioned as a vendor in any of the write-ups. Like,
That's all fine. That's all fine. I don't understand what that leads to. I hear what you're saying.
What's been communicated is that there's a partnership, not that there was like an agreement. And so now what it seems like this is boiling down to, the decision is being made by you. It's not even being made by us in a partnership. It's being made by you because you have the leverage. We don't even have any leverage here except to walk into a room and have you say that.
I disagree. I disagree.
So what leverage? I'm trying to
You're exercising your leverage now.
What's that?
You're saying this is not a contract. This is a partnership. So therefore, you owe me.
And you're saying no. We never
But that,
used to-
but that doesn't make a difference if
It
what I
makes a
say,
difference
because you're making that argument for a reason, right?
Yeah,
It's the third or fourth time I've heard it articulated. So you're making it because it's your leverage. It's a reason. You're saying it for a reason.
It's just the reality of how it emerged.
we have talked about
And that's
this as a
and
partnership.
that's fine. And you know what? The problem is this, that until we get past money, there's no conversation about a partnership.
I know that's your decision, though.
How is that my decision?
You just said it.
But
You
money
made
is where
it.
we got stuck. This is
We
about
were having
money.
a whole conversation until we got to money, and then we were actually having a conversation, and then when money came up, you was like, "Oh, that's it," and then you walked in a week later like this. We were actually having a conversation. So what? How can we not have a conversation without talking about money? But we were having a conversation. That's just not. That's disingenuous, dude. That is very disingenuous on your part.
Yes. Thank you. I'll take that.
Right? And I'm saying we showed up here, you showed up here, and it's like literally 3 minutes into the meeting, dude, you were like, well, you ain't gonna probably like it. And now I get what you meant when you said, oh, me and Chloe have been having conversations that have been in lieu of the grant, pretty much the grant report. Now I get why you were like what you were prefacing.
That
by
wasn't a
that.
secret. Chloe and I meet once a month.
I didn't
Gabriel
know
knows
the
that.
secret. I get what you were laying out here. Now I get what you when you said, oh, this is gonna probably be sticky. So you knew you were gonna do this. You said on the phone last week, oh, this is gonna probably get sticky when we talk about money. I said, well, maybe so.
No. You said, okay, so given all that, going to year 3, you articulated the same thing you articulated here this morning. To which I said, right? To which I said, Gabriel should be in that conversation if we're going to start talking about money and the history of this relationship. And that was the end of the conversation.
No, and you said it's gonna probably get sticky.
No, I said it's going to get sticky when I articulated exactly what I said in this meeting, which was I said the grant came to Just Leadership USA and we sub-grant to a number of other organizations. And I said, I know that's going to make this conversation sticky.
But this is the sticky thing you're talking about. What's happening right now is
course.
a sticky thing.
Of course.
Which means that in the
Money's always
conversation,
sticky.
you knew you were gonna come
If I walked in here and said, look, here's a check for the third year of $550,000, have a good day, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I don't know if that's true.
What would we be talking about?
We still would be talking about the relationship.
What would that look like?
Exactly what we wrote in the memo in June.
The memo doesn't match reality.
But you never responded to it other than saying, I don't read this memo.
We've had a number of conversations about what's not working.
You something.
Come on.
We
Every
wrote
time you
you
start
something.
talking like a lawyer, it makes me think of
That's
lawyers.
not a lawyer, Glenn. It's
You
not
wrote me a memo, and we've had a number of conversations about.
consistency, which is exactly why we have this problem right now that we're having in this moment. Like if you wrote back, okay, here's my critique of the memo, we weren't talking about the relationship. And so it stopped when you
Okay, so what's your? I don't understand your point.
My point
It's
is-
August.
my
It's
point is
August.
that
You wrote me a memo,
In June.
and okay.
My point is that you could have written us an email. You could have written us an email and said, here's what I'm thinking. And we didn't even have to
I
come
don't
into
know.
this morning.
I disagree. I just disagree.
You
Like, I
have
just-
a
I
right,
think-
that's your prerogative, but you could have done that. We wrote
So you guys were confused that this relationship wasn't working out?
We know the relationship wasn't working out. That's why we wrote the memo to try to figure out how to make the relationship work.
That memo was before, like, the worst part.
Right. When that worst part happened, where's your memo to us that say that you wrote one to the lawyers?
Oh, we
where's
thought it
us?
made sense to wait till vacations were over to have an in-person
That was
conversation.
y'all's decision.
Okay, I
was-
don't understand
it
what's
was
the
not
point.
helpful
Yeah,
to
take me
this
to the finish
conversation.
line of that.
It was what I'm saying is that you're walking in here with a decision that you made a long time ago, and we have been operating with you and with everybody else as if we did not have that decision was not made.
That's I was going to say that's disingenuous, but I chose not to use words like that. So
God bless you.
I just disagree.
Like I've been around too long for this bullshit you doing right now. Like you know how many times I've seen people like you do this?
People like me.
Yeah, you know what I mean by people like you?
No, tell me.
Like people who think that everybody else is stupid because
Got it.
you have your bathroom conversations,
Got it.
right? But you're not the only person having those
I'm
conversations.
good with that.
Cool. See, now I get what you were saying. I said to them like, why did he say that about the sticky thing? But now I get that I get the what I'm saying the shut across the bow, dude. You could have just said, I'm done, y'all. You could have said in an email, but you came in here and said wasn't. You could have said that Friday night, man.
I disagree. I don't think I walked in here and said I'm done with y'all. That's not how we started this conversation.
You
You
told
can
me
make it that
3 minutes
because
into
you're
the thing
upset about
that
where we
you might be a
are.
lawyer.
But that's
me.
that came in response to. I've said it 3 or 4 times.
Right. Yeah, you're right. We don't got to keep going. I think we here. We here now. We here now. Okay. I'm not wasting no more time on it. We'll figure out how we want to go forward.
And I just want to understand your timeline here so that I get this. Because that memo is actually written in May and sent around.
Wow.
So for you, Glenn, is it like yours? Are you saying that it's that conversation we had about the legislative stuff that was for you, like some final straw? That
It
conversation.
wasn't the conversation. It was the moment. What happened in that moment? The conversation for me, I was talking about personally how it landed. But take that out of the way. It was just that moment for me was a culmination of like, again, this is not working.
Yeah, no dispute there. Okay. Okay. All right. So how do you all propose or plan on, I guess you're not proposing anything, plan on, like, we're not going to stop doing Rikers related work. We're going to cross each other in the field. We're going to be on conference calls and things. Like, how do you anticipate that working? And maybe it's just easy to say, like, we just work it out and it's fine. But
How do we have that conversation till we get past this conversation?
I'm not sure we're getting past, like, we're in it now. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that
The work
the
continues.
work, like, there's a 10-year timeline that's a ticking that I think we all are on the same page and care about. We're going to continue working on it. Y'all are going to continue to work on it. So we're going to be in the same space working on it. So, like, that's where the question was. I don't know how to answer it until this other stuff gets done. My hope is that I mean, I'm not sure how much more this other stuff is going to go anyways. Like, you're articulating that this has been a contractual relationship, singularly, that's what it is. You're engaging with us as a vendor. That vending relationship no longer works. We can put in another contract with you if we want or not. Okay. Or proposal.
That is not a good characterization of what I'm saying. That is how it might land for you. Maybe I'll say it myself now so that maybe it'll sound a little bit differently. We have worked together in ways that recognize that we have a relationship that undergirds whatever contractual relationship that we have. That relationship has deteriorated considerably as a result of the contractual relationship. Basing the future solely on the relationship outside of the contractual relationship, for me, feels as though we'd be having a conversation that doesn't point to the stickiest part of our relationship. I walked in here hoping that the contractual relationship part of it would be discussed, which was why I started there. And then we could talk about all the other mechanics of closed Rikers, of legislative reform, of everything else. We're not there because we didn't get past here. And yes, I am continuing to push the conversation back here because I feel as though all of this is not real if this is pissing you guys, us off, is not working. So that's why we're stuck here. Yes, there is a relationship beyond the contractual relationship. There are people I contract with where I don't have the kind of relationship I've had with you guys. I'm willing to say that. That's the truth. The reason we're not here is only because I came in here wanting to be disciplined about the contract. I hope that sounds at least a little bit differently than what you just said.
I hear that. I think for us, we have in the using of money from open philanthropy. We built a campaign with you. We played public roles in it. We did the reporting. We helped try, like all of it. So the specific way that this lands is real inconsistent with that. That's what I mean, right? Like, I get all the contract stuff, but we built the campaign on the relationship. We have just as much stake in all of this as you all do. We've been in this since the start of it. We did the outlinings of it, like all of it. We've like this partnership is what's built it. It emerged because of the partnership. The funding that came out of it, at least as it relates to open philanthropy, emerged out of that partnership. And now what I'm hearing is you're changing that aspect of it and turning that into a singular contractual relationship for which we can now go and talk to Chloe if we have an issue, or we can come back to you with a contractual proposal about those funds. That's how this is landing, right? And so there's this, so it's in their blend that this thing is like sits as a problem. It's like just gets stuck in my crawl.
Right? A $550,000 problem.
It's not even, you know what, honestly, I mean, from an organizational perspective, which you can appreciate, that is a big fucking problem for us because we budgeted based on an agreement that was made for that year 3 funding. So to be in August, right, and be given this news is a pretty substantial hit, right? So you can appreciate that. So from an organizational perspective, yeah, that's a $550,000 big fucking problem that we have. But it's not the, like, you kept using the word, oh, we never use that word. I wouldn't use that word. It's not how we've related to this. It's not how we're engaging now. It's not my sentiment around it. Like, I don't like that. You know, it's like, we didn't use the word, you did. It's that we have this relationship, and out of this came this set of resources. And I get our relationship has been rough. And I'll say it again. I was pissed as a motherfucker about that legislative stuff. Furious. I apologize to you that I used language that was offensive and landed the wrong way for you. I didn't experience it. I didn't think of it in that way. I was not making an intentional effort to disrespect you. I was angry. So I apologize for that because that thing I realized that kept coming up, and I don't want, just for that piece of it, you name it. I get we have different perspectives on the legislative pieces, and that stuff we can sort of process differently. But this wasn't an O conversation. This was like, we started this thing, and I get which it's different. It's been different. Figure it out. We're all going to be in the field. We got to make this thing work. But it's that part of it that like is the rub for me. It's like, man, that just doesn't, it's not just like a shitty thing like that. I don't know how to get back from that in a certain way. It's like, wait a second. If we had started out simply as a contractual relationship, it like all of this would have looked so much different. We may or may not have landed where we landed in terms of the campaign, but it certainly would have looked dramatically different from where we started. I recognize that there may not be the trust any longer to continue the conversations from where we started where they were because of the things that have gone on. That bums me out. And I think from every point, I hope at some point we get back to something like that. But we did have this conversation, and we did have a series of meetings with Chloe, and we did participate as a team in the raising of that money, and we did budget around it. And yet you like, we have a contract for it, but that's not where it emerged from. And so, yeah, that's a big fucking hole for us because like you, we budgeted that year 3, next year, 2018, based on those funds. So we're going to go into the last, trimester of the year and to figure out what to do about a $500,000 hole in an organization that has a roughly $1 million budget. So there's some real practical issues there for us. Yeah. But that piece about where the stuff came from is not even, it's not even about the money. It's like, there's this other thing here that nothing else should at least have what we have done together should certainly constitute some degree of meaning that gets respected in some form way. And it feels to me like in the same industry.
Okay, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you. We got to go, right?
Right. And so, I mean, to Gabriel's question about next, I mean, you've made clear what needs to happen next, but is that like a conversation between who?
I don't know, because I'm actually not sure exactly where we are still. I appreciate what you just said, though, because my perspective is a little different, but I appreciate it. I actually thought that these conversations were part of respecting what's outside of the contractual relationship. And that if this were another organization like WFP or someone else we were contracted with, and it deteriorated this much, where there's not that history of relationship, that I wouldn't even be having these conversations. I wouldn't be saying, can you tell me what you think the work you're going to be doing going forward looks like? But I can understand how, if I were on your side of the table, be like, fuck that. I get that. I don't know where we're landing. Everything I said in this conversation is still on the table. That hasn't changed. I hear everything you're saying. I hear about what this is going to look like publicly. I hear all of that. I've thought about all of that. I know. But I don't know where we're landing. Maybe we pull back and reconvene. Maybe not. I don't know.
Take a deep breath. Let them take a deep breath. Like, yeah. And, circle back, maybe. Just take a deep breath.
If you guys are up for that, I'm up for that. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
All right.
No way I'm fighting like family. Yeah, I know. I get to see your ass. Baby. Come on. All right. And I'm going to retag.
Right?
All right.
All right.
Okay, you ready?
Yes. Thanks.
So this is 41st and Lee.
All right.
All right, so.
All right, cool. Yeah.
What's that secret level? For the top level strategy. Plan. Yes, it's either the, we need a key.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
How are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
All right. How are you doing? Doing okay.
So for the construction drive you crazy?
No, we've
This
had
is-
that tough conversation.
Okay.
Trust me, nobody even noticed the
I
damn
did not notice the construction at all. All right, good.
We were having a really tough conversation when it happened, like a price tag.
It's our life every day there. Building.
I felt the process, and figure out exactly where.
I tape recorded the conversation with my wife, so I mean,
Always a step. I took notes on a piece of paper.
I think, yeah, it's. And in a way where that is the relationship, so more of a partnership and not contractual, but that did not exist, that had been created far